Biden is handing out pardons like they're going out of style to the point where Democrats can't help but call it out right now. Guys, has this presidential pardon thing gone too far? Yo, guys, welcome back. Thanks for being here, guys. Yo, even the Democrats can't help but call out this whole presidential pardon situation going on with Biden, asking for reform right now. Yo, guys, what do you guys think? We got Amy Klobuchar coming out against it. What do you guys think? Do you think there's legitimate reason to reform presidential pardons right now? Do you think that they're just saying this because they don't want the incoming administration to have as many powers as possible? Guys, let me know what you think about the legitimacy of all these claims. And if you like the content, please like and subscribe and hit that little notification bell. I really appreciate you guys. We got a little video breaking everything down, explaining everything for us. Let's get right into it, see what's going on, guys.
President Biden has issued a raft of pardons and sentence commutations, the biggest single-day act of clemency in modern US history. 1,500 people saw their sentences downgraded. Nearly 40 non-violent criminals had theirs written off. The decision to grant mass clemency follows a backlash over the pardon the outgoing president gave to his son Hunter for gun and tax offences. Here's our North America correspondent David Willis.
Not since Jimmy Carter, on his first full day in office, granted a blanket pardon to those found guilty of evading the Vietnam War draft, have so many people been granted clemency on the same day. The 39 people pardoned by President Biden were all found guilty of individual offences, all non-violent and in many cases marijuana related. And a White House statement quoted President Biden as saying that America was built, as he put it, on the promise of second chances, adding that all those who had been granted clemency had been successfully rehabilitated and had proven that they were deserving of a second chance. All of this comes, of course, just over a week after President Biden issued an unconditional pardon to his son, Hunter.
Unconditional pardon is a really, really nice way to frame that, man. That's a little ridiculous. Sweeping pardon, handling things he hadn't even been charged with yet. So that's a more accurate way to describe that. And then, dude, not to mention all the talk of the pardons that they want to issue to people who haven't even been investigated or charged with anything yet. Like, it's ridiculous, man. It's to the point where even Amy Klobuchar is coming out against it, dude. This whole process cries out for reform. Senator Amy Klobuchar said Sunday the presidential pardon process cries out for reform and proposed a board to standardize the process and make recommendations to the president. In an interview on CBS News Face the Nation, Klobuchar said she was not comfortable with some of the people that Biden included in his 1,500 commutations in one day, a record number for any president. Yo, isn't it interesting? The BBC almost made it sound like it was only 40 or so, right? A record number for any president. No, Amy Klobuchar told moderator Margaret Brennan when asked whether she was comfortable with several examples of convicted criminals on the list whose sentences were commuted. I also didn't agree with the pardon of the president's son, she added. I also have not agreed with a number of pardons that President Trump gave. Klobuchar acknowledged that the presidential pardon power is in the Constitution, and she clarified that she was not advocating to change that. But we should have some kind of outside board that governors have the ability to give mercy to people after years of being after years have gone by. But a lot of them have boards that make recommendations and other things. Instead of people doing it in the middle of the night and people in the White House, Klobuchar agreed with Brennan that it was surprising that the White House commuted sentences not by specific cases, but based on a broad group. Is that even legal? Is that even able to hold up in court? I have no doubt that there were some righteous pardons in this group, Klobuchar said when asked whether it was a prudent decision by the White House. I believe that there were, but there were a number that I think made no sense at all. So instead of doing a whole category, why don't in a coming year before the end of the president's term, if that's when they're going to do most of these, that board looks at these and looks at them individually when people petition for them based on facts instead of just in a large group. Large groups have been done before, I believe, but I just think this whole process cries out for reform, she said, because otherwise you just undermine the justice system. Honestly, man, that might be the most reasonable thing I've heard Klobuchar said in a little while, man, but I thought this was a good opportunity Let's break this down real quick, guys, and just kind of talk about what the presidential pardons are, right? Because the same thing with the Supreme Court cases, they yell, they riff, they raff, this, that, and the third. But at the end of the day, what actually are the nuances and the details and the limitations and protections of presidential pardon powers, guys? Let's just get some facts together, man. Article Section 2, Clause 1. The president shall be commander-in-chief of the Army and the Navy of the United States and of the militia of the several states when called into the actual service of the United States. He may require the opinion in writing of the principal officer in each of the executive departments upon any subject relating to the duties of their respective offices, and he shall have the power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment. Interesting. It almost sounds like the wording is specifically related to people that were working under him and in his command, but it doesn't explicitly say that. The Constitution establishes the president's authority to grant clemency, encompassing not only pardons of individuals, but several other forms of relief from criminal punishment as well. The power, which has historical roots in early English law, has been recognized by the Supreme Court as quite broad. In 1886 case Ex parte Garland, the court referred to the presidential authority to pardon as unlimited, except in cases of impeachment, extending to the very offense known to the law, and able to be exercised either before legal proceedings are taken or during their pendency or after conviction and judgment. Wow, so they can be exercised. Okay, so the Supreme Court has ruled on this. Much later, the court wrote that the broad power conferred in the Constitution give President plenary authority to forgive a convicted person part or entirely, or to reduce a penalty in terms of a specified number of years, or to alter it with certain conditions. So what is he like, the king or a queen on a chessboard, right? Despite the breadth of the president's authority under the pardon clause, the Constitution text provides at least two limits on the power. First, clemency may only be granted for offenses against the United States, meaning that state criminal offenses and federal or state civil claims are not covered. Secondly, president's clemency authority cannot be used in cases of impeachment. Beyond textual limitations, certain external constitutional and legal considerations may act as constraints on the power. For instance, the court has indicated that the power may be exercised at any time after an offense is commissioned, reflecting that the president may not preemptively immunize future criminal conduct. In Schick v. Reed, so then I guess that covers him doing Hunter, right? That covers him and Hunter, right? That's interesting. In Schick v. Reed, the court recognized that an exercise of clemency may include any condition which does not otherwise offend the Constitution. An exercise of any condition which does not otherwise offend the That's interesting. Suggesting that the president may not take clemency to a subject, may not make clemency subject to a condition that is prohibited by other constitutional provisions. Other apparent limitations include not affecting vested rights of third parties, such as where forfeited property is sold. So basically, you're not allowed to grant clemency when it would be prohibited by a different constitutional provisions, and you're not allowed to grant clemency when it would violate somebody else's rights, or proceeds paid into the treasury, which can only be secured by the former owner through an act of Congress. The court in the Laura also alluded to an exception for fines imposed by a coordinate department of the government for contempt of its authority. So basically, presidential pardons can remove or reduce fines that have been imposed on by the court for contempt. Though a later case recognized that the president may pardon one who is subject to criminal punishment for contempt of court. So assuming they recognize these limitations are not transgressed, a full pardon granted by the president and accepted by its subject prevents or removes any penalties and disabilities consequent upon conviction. In several 19th century cases, the Supreme Court suggested that a pardon broadly obviates all legal guilt of the offender and effectively erasing the crime from existence. Subsequent cases appear to have backed away from this understanding, suggesting that instead, although a full pardon precludes punishment for the offense in question, a prior and pardoned offense may be still considered in subsequent proceedings. Oh, that's very interesting. Congress generally cannot substantively constrain the president's pardon authority through legislation, as the court has held the power of the president is not subject to legislative control. Congress can neither limit the effect of his pardon nor exclude its exercise from any class of offenders. The benign prerogative of mercy reposed in him cannot be fettered by any legislative restrictions. Nevertheless, there is historical precedent for legislation facilitating the exercise of the pardon through funding of executive branch positions to review clemency petitions. Congress also has other constitutional tools that it may use in relation to the presidential pardon, provided legal conditions associated with those tools are met, such as oversight, impeachment, and constitutional amendment. Yeah, you need a constitutional amendment because apparently they don't have the right to engage in oversight. They can create a board that offers recommendations to the president, but apparently, according to the words here, the president can still do whatever he wants. So that's pretty wild. It looks like presidential pardons are pretty broad, and there is no ability for Congress to actually limit them. They can socially pressure them, but there's no ability to limit them in the Constitution without some sort of constitutional amendment. That's pretty wild. I guess we've learned a lot here about presidential pardons. That was pretty crazy, guys. Yo, I did a good job with the time. Hell yeah. Yo, thank you so much, guys. If you made it to the end, thank you so much. Please check out any of these screens over here off to my left. I got music. I got a playlist of all the news that I cover. I got whatever video I just put out, and then whatever video is best for you. Right here to the left. Guys, check it out. Check out my music, man. Let me know what you think. Yo, I appreciate you guys. I'll see you in the next segment.